Where your honesty and integrity start to get questioned, that's where the line is. When you lie and you cheat and you steal and you manipulate and you break the rules and you bend the rules, and your parents start to lie and cheat for you, and they want the umpire to have been right and they're yelling at him because he missed a call. That's part of the game. You need to stop throwing your helmet, stop throwing your sucker in the dirt, stop being a whiny baby, and go out there and compete and control what you can control. And I might be getting in my coach mode right now, but stop whining about everything that's outside of the rules, outside of the bounds. Play the game the right way, play it hard. And that's where the line is. There's a set of rules that's there. Stay within it. Stay with integrity. And you know what? Stop showing up the other team. Stop looking in their dugout. Start getting hype with your guys. Mm-hmm. That's where the line starts to be drawn.
Welcome to Let's Talk About That, the podcast where we dive into conversations about life and share stories of faith. We're thrilled to be on this journey with you. Whether you're a longtime listener, someone who calls the Orchard home, or you're just stopping by, Let's Talk About That is your space to explore, reflect, and connect. Join us as we navigate the intricacies of faith, spiritual formation, and daily life as we invite guests to share their stories with us. So grab a cup of coffee, find a comfortable space, and let's do this together. This is Let's Talk About That, where you can be encouraged and inspired by God's work in our lives.
Well, we are back with another episode of Let's Talk About That. My name is Matt. If you're a regular listener and you're like, that does not sound like Chip, you would be correct. If you are new to the podcast, we want to say welcome to you. We're excited to dive into a conversation today that I'm really excited about. I am here today with two special guests. And so if you guys want to introduce yourselves, we'll start with you, Trey.
Yeah, I'm Trey Lee. I'm at our Lake City location, and I'm our FCA area director.
Yep. So Trey, how long have you been at the Orchard?
16 years.
16 years. So Trey is one of the longest standing support staff. Can we call you that?
I guess. Informal missionary.
Yeah, there you go.
That's something.
So Trey is a lay leader here, involved in a lot of things, has been for a long time, did student ministry for a while, and now has transitioned into a different type of ministry that we get to partner with on many occasions. We get to support him as his role in FCA. And then to my left, I know you guys can't see this, so take my word for it, but to my left, we have Mr. Corey Burk. So Corey, introduce yourself to the listeners at home.
I'm Corey Burk. Go to Lake City location and volunteer through FCA.
So tell us, you have not been at the Orchard for 16 years.
I've been at the Orchard for about 2 years.
About 2 years. So quite an interesting dynamic here. We got a long-standing Trey for 16 years. Myself, I've only been here for about 3.5 years. And then you're relatively new. I guess we can say that.
Yeah. Now, we don't have to answer the question because we've both been on the podcast.
No,
before.
We're going to skip the question.
Yeah,
so if you don't know what the question is, then that's fine. Go back, listen to previous episodes. We're going to skip the question because you guys have already answered the question. But I guess today what I'm most excited about is we're going to talk about really a way that you guys are involved in ministry, but a way that maybe is unconventional. In some ways, it's not your every Sunday type of ministry, and yet it's no less ministry, right? And so before we do that, though, tell us a little bit about your background, because we're going to talk about like sports today, specifically how do you minister in the arena, so to speak. And so before we have that conversation and really talk the nitty-gritty of ministering in that field, tell us a little bit about your backgrounds. What is your background as far as sports go? How did you get involved in sports, and just anything that you might find helpful for people at home?
Yeah, I played baseball through high school, and I coached baseball at the middle school level for 11 years. But I got started in it just kind of as a thing to do. I mean, really, my mom was like, "Hey, let's sign you up for sports." At the time, I didn't have a dad present in my life. And so a couple years later, the guy that I call dad now entered my life and has been great. But sports was kind of just an avenue to be loved on, to be cared about by some strong male figures. And I think my mom saw the value in that. And so that's kind of how I ended up falling in love with sports. Was like, this is kind of guy time, you know.
Yeah, so,
great
well, I got to ask this. Yeah. So if you are a regular listener, then maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago now, Trey, you caught a stray in that episode, and it was from an unlikely source. because our founding pastor, one of the most godly men I know, and I mean that sincerely.
Yeah.
He kind of threw a stray there at Trey.
Yeah, I would have expected that from anybody
I think the
else.
question went something like, "Did Trey ever hit a home run?" Was that it? Am I remembering that?
He said, did he hit a home run off of anybody?
Off of anybody. So I guess now's your chance to defend yourself and answer that question.
I cannot defend myself. I was in the era of the BB Core, the starting era of the BB Core. So
you're blaming the bat.
Yeah, 100%. A good workman is blaming his tools. You know?
All right. Well, we're going to blame the bat. So the answer is no.
Sure. Yeah, that is the answer.
Right.
I did hit a double off Matthew Pennington, though.
I do not remember that. So
that's all right. I have to make sure to throw that in there.
All right. Well, we'll dig up the archives because I do not remember that. So maybe if you have a video, drop it in the link below in the comments.
Summer games, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you even? That's like a VHS. I don't know how you link a VHS to to Facebook comments or any other comments. So, what about you, Corey? What's your background, sports? Kind of how did you get involved, and bridge the gap here in a minute for how you're involved now.
So I grew up with a bat in my hand. My mom and my dad both played softball. My dad was in the military, and that's what you did when you weren't at work in the military was play softball. So my dad played fast pitch softball and even slow pitch softball as a male, and my mom played as well. So I grew up with them there, and then I've had a bat in my hand since I could walk, basically. Played baseball through school. We moved to Lake City when I was at the end of elementary school, so I started middle school and high school here, and then played my freshman year. I got a scholarship to go play down at Lake Sumter. Played a year down there and turned that scholarship in and came home.
Gotcha. So I guess let me ask you guys this. This may become relevant at the end. When it comes to sports, I think there's an interesting debate, and I feel this a little bit myself. Were you guys forced, so to speak, to play sports, or was it something that you naturally gravitated to?
No, I wasn't forced at all. My mom was just like, hey, go give this a shot. Actually, so I played basketball and football before I ever played baseball, and I love those. I did not want to go to baseball practice the first time that I had baseball practice, and I hid in my neighbor's house, believe it or not. So maybe I was forced to play baseball, but I fell in love with it day one, and it was definitely a natural attraction to just competitiveness. And honestly, it was one of the areas that I felt like I really got to be, I don't know if it's who I was called to be, but like as a man, like you get to compete, you get to go out and be in the sunshine and get dirty. And I felt like that was, I don't know that it was a primitive feeling, but I loved it. I loved playing sports every time I could.
Gotcha. So there was something, whether you were encouraged, in the beginning or not. What about you, Corey?
So I wasn't forced to play baseball. That's all I did play. I was forced not to play football. I was told I was too small and too short, that from my mom, and so I just picked up.
Do you think she meant it, or she just didn't want you to play?
I think she just didn't want me to play.
Yeah.
I think she knew how competitive I was and my propensity to get hurt.
Yeah, I get that. I hear that a lot these days, let me say this. I never played football at a high level. In fact, this is what ruined my football career. I played flag football, like rec sports growing up. I played 1 year, and our team did not win a game. And I think that was it for me. I never had a desire to play football. Now, looking back, it's something that, I wish I would have done. I love football. I love watching college football. I love learning about strategy and schemes and offensive play calling, stuff like that. So I like it now from a strategy standpoint, understanding the game. But I think that winless season just really did it for me. I was like, this is awful. I do not ever want to play this again.
And that's how you know you like sports. Because if you hate losing, you will like sports. If you don't care, you won't stay around long.
All right. Let's save that to the end because I do want to get there. I have very strong feelings, but I'm genuinely interested in some thoughts on that. But before we do that, you guys, if you were here this past Sunday, maybe at the time of this recording, maybe 2 Sundays ago by the time this comes out, if you were there, though, we talked a lot about the last couple of weeks about informal missionaries. So before we talk about what that is, I want to get your guys' perspective. So obviously I'm on staff, I'm in meetings, I'm in strategy planning type meetings. And so when we talk about this kind of stuff, at least in my head, it's rock solid concrete. When I hear the word informal missionaries, when I hear that phrase, it's very clear in my mind. But as we've already established, you guys are not on staff here. And I think sometimes it's just helpful for us to be reminded, and I think we do a good job of this, but we are reminded often that we can't take for granted just because we're in the office thinking about ministry virtually nonstop, planning and looking ahead in those things. Most of the people who call our locations home are not in those meetings. And so they're not thinking about ministry, at least not in the same ways as we are, or sometimes don't have the freedom to think about it as much as we do. And so speak to that for just a second. Corey, you work a full-time job that is a non-ministry job, a secular job, right? So when you have interacted with this phrase from a layperson standpoint, so to speak, tell me, because I'm curious, what is it that kind of goes off in your mind, or how do you rationalize this phrase, informal missionary? What does that mean to you, just hearing it from a non-staff perspective?
So it puts ministry into perspective. As a person that's not a paid staff member, but you don't have to be a paid staff member to minister.
Exactly.
And you can do that throughout your daily life. I'm a father, I have 2 kids. I can minister to them, my wife, my family. And then I have a unique opportunity through work to minister to people sometimes in their hardest times, their worst times of their life.
Yeah.
And some of my most memorable points of my career were standing on the side of the road with somebody and praying with them.
Yeah.
And
so for the people at home who don't know, the people listening to this, they don't know what Corey Burk does for a living. So just give them a little snapshot real quick.
So I'm a trooper with the Florida Highway Patrol.
Right. So oftentimes I think what you're saying is, like, when you interact with people, it's probably not under the best circumstances, right?
I would agree.
Either they were speeding and you're reminding them to slow down, which I don't know how much of that you do, or, working like a traffic accident or, something like that.
Yeah. So it's mainly through traffic crashes is where you kind of find the most vulnerable points. I don't work as many as I used to. I work a dog now. And so even at that, like through the outreach within the community as the canine handler brings forth, it allows you to minister to people, right, just by showing good example.
Yeah. So I guess, how do I rationalize this? In my head, it's a little different because I'm on staff at a church, right? So I'm not saying I view it this way, although I think in the Bible Belt it's viewed this way, as like you're a professional Christian, right? Like you have to think about this stuff all the time. But I guess, for someone like you, it's more of, I get to do this. Yes, I work and I draw a paycheck from the state, or, I have responsibilities or whatever, but I have the ability to speak into maybe a less than ideal situation. Maybe somebody's going through a horrible day and I get to essentially partner with them in this moment just because my job allows me to. Do you find the idea informal missionary helpful in any way, as far as like almost like this I can do it mentality of like, man, I really can do this. I have the ability to do this. Or does it validate that ministry opportunity in any way?
I think as the concept informal missionary, it tells anybody that you can do it, and you do it. I shared a quote yesterday with Trey that I heard on a podcast with Tim Tebow the other day, and it says, we preach the gospel daily. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while use words. Yeah. And so just in our everyday life, we're sharing the gospel.
Right. So I think for me, and we're coming off a series where we started this conversation about how do you follow Jesus in an online world, in a digital world where so many of our interactions are not face-to-face, they're screen-to-screen. And yet the consensus in that whole series was who you are as a follower of Jesus never changes. It's who you are when you're behind a screen. It's who you are in person. And so I think to that point is informal missionaries, it's a title, so to speak, but it's really just who you are as a follower of Jesus. Yeah. Right? Like you follow Jesus at work because as a follower of Jesus, you're a follower of Jesus wherever you go.
I think one thing a lot of people take for granted, especially like whenever you think about your pastors, I've heard every pastor I've ever met tell the same story, which was I was sitting on an airplane and somebody next to me asked me what I did, and I just did not want to tell them what I do for work.
Can concur. So yes. I say this all the time. My wife will tell you this. Anytime somebody asks me, what do you do? I almost cringe on the inside, not because I'm ashamed, but because people react to that differently. It's like they change who they are. And I'm like, I just want you to be who you are. I want to have honest conversation with you,
and you're not,
because I'm no different than you, right? My job is different or whatever, but like, I'm just like you, right? I want to have an honest conversation.
Well, and when you tell them you're not getting the real them, immediately the first things you hear are, I hadn't been to church in a little while. Like, okay, I didn't ask. You know what I mean?
Have you seen the meme going around lately? It's like the little pie chart, it's similar to the thing that's like one little sliver of red and the other one's blue. And it's like, I don't know, me when I'm hungry, and then me when I'm hungry, but in blue, like that type of pie chart thing.
Yeah.
And so it's similar to that, but it's for pastors, and it's like how people respond when they find out I'm a pastor. And one is like, oh, I go to X church, or they stop cussing, or, whatever it is. And it's like all of those things happen every time. And so if I could, I would just never tell anybody that I'm a pastor, because I feel like you lose the genuineness of the conversation because people are like different.
But that right there is the importance of the informal missionary.
Absolutely.
Right? Because Corey has the ability at work. They see him in that moment, and all of a sudden, like, this guy is showing me compassion. He's showing me grace. He's showing me love. Or the guys that I'm working with are, why do you do this differently? Whereas if Matt is around,
it's like an expectation.
Yeah.
It's like, he's just doing that because he works at a church.
Yes. And so
part of his job.
Yeah. Honestly, and I wish, and it's more effective outside of the culture that we live in. I wish that more people would take that serious, because we have the opportunity to reach more people than Matt does. Right? Like, anybody sitting in church listening to you has the opportunity to reach more people than you have.
Yeah, because everybody has a different sphere of influence. Everybody has that realm that they can speak into, which is why I want to have this conversation about not just informal missionaries. And when we say informal missionaries, if we can just boil it down so we're super clear, it's the idea that when you follow Jesus, you have the ability to minister, to minister to people around you. And it's not your job description that qualifies you for that. It's not going to seminary that qualifies you for that. It's not holding a microphone on Sunday morning that qualifies you for that. What qualifies you to be an informal missionary is that you have experienced the love and the grace of God through Jesus, that you have repented of sin, put your faith in him. You have become a brand new person because of God's grace to you through Jesus. And therefore now you follow Jesus. You have the ability to then speak truth into the people around you and ultimately give people the hope that you have. And that hope is found only in Jesus. And so that's really the idea of informal missionary. It's informal because you don't work at a church. You're not employed. You don't draw a paycheck from the church. And yet you are still a missionary doing what formal missionaries do all over the world.
Right.
They get supported by churches. They get supported by missions agencies or whoever it is. But their job, so to speak, their role in life is to go and tell people about Jesus.
Yeah.
Every follower of Jesus has the same opportunity. It just might be you draw your paycheck from a different source.
Right.
But it doesn't negate the opportunity that you have to minister. So that's what we mean when we say informal missionaries. Now, specifically today, you guys have already talked about you have a background in sports because you enjoyed it, you played it growing up, you found some of the benefits of sports, such as strong mentors or male figures or coaches in your life, probably the camaraderie. I think back to all my conversations with my buddies. Do I miss playing baseball? Like maybe 1% of me.
Yeah.
Because I think of how much my body would hurt if I
100%.
threw every day and ran and did all this stuff. But what you miss the most is the camaraderie.
Yeah.
It's the bus rides. It's the locker rooms. It's the hangs. It's just being with the boys. You gel. That's what teams do. Teams come together because you go through a lot of stuff together. You go through the thick. You get to celebrate together. When things don't go according to plan, you get to weep with one another, so to speak. But you share so many emotions and
it's not just on the field stuff, right? Like while you're talking about this, I thought about the locker room and a bad moment that I had in there when a guy comes in and tells us that his mom has cancer, and like we're the first people he comes in to tell, right? Like we're his brothers at that time, and the music turns off.
You literally share life. I mean, for that season, every day you go to practice for a game for months on end, like. You spend more time with those guys and those coaches probably than with anybody else. And so I want to talk about this idea of what does it look like to be an informal missionary specifically in the world of sports. And the reason I bring this up is because, Trey, you mentioned that you are now the area director for FCA.
Yeah.
And so your job, so to speak, is kind of bridging the gap between scholastics, the school side of things, and the church, right? Like what can I do to minister in the school setting, which is not a church setting?
Right.
And then Corey is one of your, volunteers, for lack of a better term, but more than that, right? Like has a huge impact. And so let me just start generically. What opportunity does sports provide to do ministry as an informal missionary, whether it be paid staff as far as FCA goes, or volunteer capacity? From your perspective, what have you seen sports provides unique opportunities to do ministry? In what ways?
Yeah. So one way is it's another voice in a kid's life, and it's one that they see that has influence. I'll never forget when I first started coaching, a dad was sitting at the impact zone telling his kid something, and he was right. Like he was 100% spot on. You need to do this. And the kid wouldn't do it. And I walk over and say the exact same thing. The kid starts doing it and he's hitting lasers. It wasn't anything that I came up with. It wasn't anything his dad came up with. Somebody's taught him that, right? But like they heard from me what they didn't hear from their parents. And so it's another voice in their life, but coaches have a greater influence on the lives of their athletes than almost anybody. Coaches, you find a good coach and a kid will run through a wall, literally.
Yeah. I think of a phrase that familiarity breeds contempt. And I remember my dad used to get so frustrated for the same thing. He's like, I've been telling you that for 2 weeks. And then some random person, some stranger, and it's so, but like you said, it's a different voice. It's a different perspective. But I think the underlying process there is that I respond to people I respect.
Right.
And so whoever you are in that person's life, to some degree, they respect what you say, and that's why they did it. Not that they don't respect mom or dad, but they're so familiar that it's kind of like roll your eyes, right? Mm-hmm. But then when this guy, he's the head varsity coach, or he's a college coach, or he's a travel ball coach. It's like there's a level of respect there, right? Yeah. And so I think that respect leads to a response in this case, right? That sometimes mom and dad don't have, or whoever it might be.
We're a culture of titles, right? Mr. So-and-so carries more weight than Matt, right?
Absolutely.
Mr. Matt carries more weight than Matt. Pastor Matt carries a different weight, right?
Right.
So when you put coach in front of somebody's name, it just carries a little different weight. And so, some coaches use that for good and some coaches use that for bad, and we can unpack that later.
We can talk about that maybe if we have time later.
But
so I'm curious, Corey, first, kind of let people know when you say, or when Trey says, volunteer with FCA, just let people know, what does that look like?
So I approached Trey, or Trey approached me. We spoke about it. I've always wanted to have a relationship with Columbia baseball. I played there. I believe in the program. And
does that make you uncomfortable, Matt, that we're talking good about Columbia baseball, or is that okay?
All things to all people.
Okay, there we go.
Anyway,
good.
Carry on.
And so when he took over FCA and was talking to me about taking and helping out with the baseball team, I said, if we can get there, I'd love to be there. And just to be with the guys, just to be there, to be a voice and to share the gospel. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things. I was there. I was around the guys before we even really had gospel type conversations. So I've done both the chaplaining, you call it, for the baseball team, and I've been to a couple huddles, and I just try to go. Sometimes I go in uniform, and sometimes I don't. They need to know that we're real people outside. I'm not a pastor. I don't work for the church, but yet I'm a real person, but yet I care about them.
So walk through, how did this look practically? So you're Corey Burk, the FHP guy, to these guys, right? Because they weren't around when you played, at least not very old if they were. And so they don't know.
I think I went to school with a couple of them's dads.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
None of them knew Corey, the baseball player.
Yeah.
Tallahassee.
And so, I'm in the same boat, I played Swanee High School in 2011.
Right.
And these guys were born, probably just a few years before that. Yeah. And so to the chagrin of all of our pride, right? Like our pride would say, oh, you were so good at baseball and da-da-da.
Yeah.
These guys don't care.
Yeah, your legacy's dead.
You can tell them a story and they roll your eyes like, yeah, but y'all are using wood bats and throwing, these.
That guy was a plumber on the weekend.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like there's just a different tier, right? It's the Michael Jordan versus LeBron debate.
Yeah.
It depends on your generation. So these guys don't know Corey Burk, the CHS baseball player who played freshman year at Lake Sumter. These guys see a guy who shows up maybe in uniform, maybe not, with a FHP uniform on, and they're like, okay, why is this guy at baseball practice? Like, I'm oversimplifying, but just kind of talk from the ground up. What does this look like to be an informal missionary, but you show up and these guys are like, who the heck is this and why is he here? From there all the way to now we have gospel conversation. Just kind of walk through that process, at least from your perspective.
So the Bible study that we ended up doing was not brought forth right away. You know, it was me there, being there, me spending time there, me spending time around the kids, the young men, just being there, being encouraging. You know, it's being in proximity, you know, and Trey talked about that Sunday, just being in proximity, being there and being present and actually
the power of with, right? Like that was the idea of Sunday.
And then, you know, I didn't have a whole lot of baseball opportunity or input. I had no input there. I'm not there to be a coach. I'm just there to be there.
Yeah.
And to talk to you if you want to be talked to. You know, the couple of times I ran by in uniform, you know, I got questions about how fast can I go over the speed limit before you stop me. But by being there and building that relationship with them, then the questions came, well, why is this guy here? And then FCA came up. I'm here through FCA. I'm here as a volunteer with FCA. And I'd love to talk to you about the gospel. And it turned into the kids asking for a weekly Bible study, and it turned into them, like, if I showed up there and I wasn't ready to give them a Bible study, if I was just showing up at another time during the week, they're like, oh, it's Bible study today, right? And they would get excited. And just the being there, being present, showing that I cared, you know, and the generation that's in high school and college now, they want authenticity. They want you there. They want you to know that you're involved, that you got skin in the game.
Right.
If you got skin in the game, then we can talk.
Yeah, I think there's a principle here. And if you're listening and you're not a sports person, then I hope you're still tracking with us, because this is not really about sports. Sports is just a great case study or an example for what it means to be an informal missionary. But I think what you said is key. If your desire as a follower of Jesus is to be an informal missionary, wherever that is, it may be sports, it may be in the creative world, it may be musically, it may be artistically, whatever that looks like, it may be at your job as a lawyer, a teacher, a nurse, whatever. I think there is something that you said that is key to being an informal missionary, and it's this. It starts with just showing up.
Yeah.
You just show up. And when you just show up, people are like, who the heck are you and why are you here?
Yeah.
But then it turns into, hey, this guy's here and he has a wife and kids at home and he's at a baseball field and he's not drawing a paycheck to be here. He's not even on staff as a coach. Yeah. He's just showing up. And eventually consistency begins to earn trust. I think it builds that respect that we talked about, to where now it's, oh, all of a sudden, hey, Corey's here, and now we're looking forward to it.
And Corey, I mean, just this is the impact, right? Corey is leaving from here and going to their banquet. Was invited to their. He's a part of the team, and he was fully prepared to show up and not have a single benefit to him the entire season. He was fully prepared to show up and just be there to be present.
Right.
And you didn't touch on this, but it kind of, the door opened whenever Corey talked. The kids kind of listened to him, and then the coaches were like, hey, here's some topics we want you to talk to them about, you know, just some sports things, some deal with adversity. And that turned into, why are you here? Well, I'm here with FCA. So we could do a Bible study. Okay, great. So they're doing a Bible study with them once a week. And then that turns into me showing up to a game and a parent pulling me to the side. These are things Corey doesn't even know. Parent pulling me to the side and saying, I know it's through FCA. I know you work for FCA. I don't know how this is all tied in, but my son called me and said, Mom, I got to tell you the story that we learned from Corey today. And I don't want to text you. I want to tell you in person. And she just is in tears. Like, that's a big deal for us. You know, that means a lot for our family.
Because
thank you guys.
That's tangible impact.
Yeah.
So I want to paint a picture here. If you're listening, this is what it means to be an informal missionary. It's that now you have a real face-to-face conversation with a parent who is moved to tears because of the impact that is being had on her son that has now impacted her. And what you would say, and I assume that both of you guys would say this, is I didn't really do anything special. Like, I just did what I thought that I should do because I follow Jesus and I want people to know him. And I think this is the cool part about sports specifically. You guys have a background in sports. You clearly have a passion for sports. Like this is something that you don't hate doing. This is something that's enjoyable. I played here. I care about the program. And so I want to be invested. And yet what that allows is, as an informal missionary, your background and your experience creates common ground with this generation of baseball players. They don't know Trey or Corey, the high school baseball player, but because you share common language, because you understand the game and you can talk about game and you can talk about, hey man, I saw you went 2 for 3 with 2 doubles. Like, good job.
Yeah.
You speak the language.
And so that's a huge deal.
Immediately you share common ground. And because you speak the language, now you're beginning to earn trust. Like that relationship develops a lot quicker when you have common ground, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the benefit in this case for you guys, myself included. Like I played sports. I'm competitive. I just enjoy it. I enjoy all things about it. It gives you common ground so that it becomes a catalyst for relationship building. You know, I would have a really, really hard time going in and building relationships with people who are super artistic and creative because I can't speak the language. And I definitely can't paint or draw a picture that like earns their respect, you know? And so that's why informal missionaries are crucial, because people who are gifted in those areas, now you can speak that language, and that's a whole demographic or a whole sphere of influence that you can have as a follower of Jesus to then build relationships and to speak the language. And so, for this conversation, it's really about being an informal missionary. We're just using the example of sports, but the principles are, number one, it starts with just showing up.
Right.
When you show up consistently, you begin to earn trust. You begin to earn respect that then paves a way for you to speak into whoever that person is or that group is, because you also speak the language. You can communicate to them ideas, gospel-related ideas, but in a language that they can understand because it's through analogies or illustrations or examples of sports. And so really, this is applicable to any area of life. Yeah. Well, it's not just sports.
The first thing that a global missionary does when they get to a new area, or they did before they got there, is learn the language, because everybody has a heart language.
Sometimes years.
Yeah. My buddy Carter is spending 2 years in language school because there's a specific dialect where he's at right now that he has to learn. And so it's a challenge. So he's spending 2 years doing that while he's living down there. And then his wife will do it after he gets done. Right now they're, you know, raising kids and doing all that stuff. But the first thing you need to do to connect with somebody is learn to speak their heart language. And when you know the language in sports, when you know the language, I love talking when I was teaching. I love talking to our music students because they would just laugh at me because I knew just enough to say stupid stuff, you know? But that's how you start to build that relationship. And so you have to be also A, willing to connect, but B, willing to be embarrassed, you know, like be willing to be authentic.
Can't take yourself too serious.
Yes.
You know,
and that's the key thing for any informal missionary. Be authentic, be yourself. And I think, you know, sports is an avenue. We talk about work for informal missionaries, but it doesn't have to be either of those things. It could be Walmart that you can be an informal missionary.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it's important, you know, as a person that's not a pastor, I don't have a degree in biblical studies. And so the Bible is still, you know, we're all still learning the Bible. And so I'm not going to come out and quote scripture, and I'm not there yet. But I think the most impactful time I had with them, and I think it's important to share with everybody, is just tell your story.
Right.
If you just tell your story and how you ended up where you were, that's as impactful as anything else. And when you have that common ground and you share your story and be vulnerable, you know, I told them about cancer. I told them about questioning things.
Yeah.
And then I told them where I was.
Right. It's authentic. You know, I think that's the thing. People in our society, and I say this because I see it all the time, like you can sniff out when something's not real. You know, like I think our culture today, we talked about the digital world in this last series. We live in a world of AI where you watch a video and your first question is this real? I think people crave real. And so I think transparency leads to that, right? It's authentic and people, it's almost like they lean forward. If they think you're authentic, they lean into that conversation because they're like, I'm going to listen to what this person has to say. I may not agree with it, but they think it's true or they lived it and it's real. So there's something that I think we gravitate to. And that's true of you as an informal missionary, wherever you find yourself, whether it's a hobby, whether it's work, if you lean into this idea that because I follow Jesus, I have the opportunity to minister to the people around me. If you are just transparent, if you are authentic, then I think you'll find people will naturally gravitate to you, which then opens the door for conversation.
Right. And to go back to the message that we keep referencing, the end of our At Follower series. I don't know if Chip said this in Live Oak. He may have. I know Eddie said it because I took it from him. But that verse where it talks about dwelling among us, and the real,
John 1:14.
Yes, in John 1:14, and it says, he dwelt among us, dwelling meaning to tabernacle or to build a tent, or the Message even that, I don't know if that's a translation, but the translation that they use in the Message is to move into the neighborhood.
Right, yeah.
And like that is it as an informal missionary. You need to be able to be in the neighborhood. You need to speak the language. You need to know the culture. You need to love the people. You need to be present.
Absolutely. That the glory of God indwelt a human body is kind of the idea. The body was temporary, the Son of God being eternal, and yet the God of the universe temporarily inhabited a human body. Right. This mysterious, miraculous thing, right? We call it in theology the hypostatic union. That how it all makes sense. I don't think our brains can fully comprehend, but that Jesus is fully God, fully man, but that he, the Word, became flesh and dwelt, tabernacled, temporarily housed the glory of God in a human body. But what I love about Jesus' humanity is we can relate to it.
Yeah.
Right.
He was speaking our language, right?
And he brought authenticity to them. He was there. He was authentic, and
it was a way almost to digest, to what our brains can, to digest the glory of God, the reality of who God is, instead of being some abstract concept way out in space somewhere that we kind of like, oh, he exists and he's divine, but we don't really understand it. No, we fully understand what it means to be human. And now, for lack of a better term, Jesus is speaking our language in a way that we can interpret. This is what God is really like, because we can see it, and we can comprehend it because we know what it's like to be human.
And of all the world religions, right, that's the only God to step down from the throne, right? Not that he wasn't still in control, but to be with his people. And so we used incarnational ministry as was one of the points. But while we cannot be Jesus, the model that we have for reaching others is to be like Jesus. And if he was willing to be like us, obviously he was not like us. There can be a theological issue, but I think you guys know what I'm saying here. If he's willing to come and take on the image of man in that moment and still be fully God, we should be able to take on the image of bearing that cross and being like Jesus. Right.
And I think it's important for us to understand, as a follower of Jesus, his Spirit lives in you.
Right.
His Spirit lives in your body. Paul says that the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead gives life to your mortal body.
Yeah.
Right. So that is what enables you to be an informal missionary, is that you are made new because of Jesus, because of who he is and what he's done, that when your faith is in him, now his Spirit lives inside of you and empowers you to go and do ministry.
100%.
Right.
And no offense to Corey here, but those boys were not impacted by Corey. They were impacted by what God was doing through Corey.
By Jesus in Corey.
100%.
Right. And I think
that's the key.
Absolutely. And that's what it means to be an informal missionary is, number one, I think it's important to understand that you don't go and do ministry all by yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
You have the opportunity to go and do ministry because the Spirit of God lives inside of you and empowers you to do that ministry. On this topic, and Trey, you kind of shared this already, but I'm just curious. So now you've bridged the gap between the language that you speak called sports, specifically baseball, and I'm a follower of Jesus. So how do I marry these two worlds together? I'm curious, are there any cool stories or any experiences that you had in doing this that just kind of caused you to stop and think, wow, this is pretty cool, or wow, look what God has done?
Not in the moment. There wasn't anything in the, well, there was in the moment when I walked in the door the last time I got to be with them before the season ended. Trey actually got there before I did, and I walked in the room, and they either had a Bible in their hand or they had the phone in their hands, and the Bible was pulled up. And so, you go through the year, you wonder, they're on their phones, they're staring at their phones. You wondered, were they paying attention or were they playing around on their phones? But seeing them all there.
Hey, if it makes you feel any better, sometimes I feel like that on Sunday.
No joke.
Right. I think you feel the weight though when when you're trying to do ministry, you do feel the weight of, man, I feel like this is really important that I want you to know it. Not because it's something that I'm saying, it's because like, this is the truth. This is the word of God. And so you do have those questions of like, man, did they understand what I was saying? Were they even paying attention at all? Right. Those are all real feelings.
Yeah. And then just the questions they ask. You learn that they're paying attention by the questions they ask. And there's just talking to them about their lessons that they learned on Sunday mornings. They wanted to talk. I came on Mondays. So Sunday was the yesterday to them. Mm-hmm. And so they wanted to talk to me about what they heard at church yesterday. Mm-hmm. And just being able to share it with them. And really, I think the most impactful day I had was when I was sitting in church on services on Sunday morning, and a lesson that Chip brought, it came to me. I said, I need to tell these guys my story. Like why is Corey here? How did Corey get here? How did Corey get to where this point is in life? Yeah. And so when I shared my story, and they basically all of them were speechless, which isn't common for them.
When a coach calls you afterwards and is like, man, the whole locker room was in tears, myself included. Yeah. And again, Corey doesn't know all these stories. These are things that get shared with me behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. That's impact.
So I want to hit on this real quick. So you're hearing this,
yeah,
right? Because you're the FCA guy,
right?
So if one of your guys does it, then you get to hear, man, yeah, Corey's killing it or whatever. In the moment, you don't get to hear that, Corey. And so sometimes, this is what I'm trying to say about informal missionaries. Sometimes you have an impact that you don't see.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes you have an impact that you don't know exists,
right?
And yet, Trey, you get to see it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you're wondering like, man, am I even doing anything? I've been trying to, talk with my coworker. I've been trying to do this Jesus thing at work. I don't know if I'm doing a good job. And I would say sometimes you don't always get to see it in the moment. You don't always get to feel the effect in the moment. But just because you don't see it or feel it does not mean that what you're doing isn't having an impact. And sometimes it just comes out later. And so I guess my encouragement would be, if you are in this life and you're like, man, I feel like this informal missionary thing, like I get it. I'm on board with it. I'm trying my best, but I feel like I'm just spinning my tires. I feel like, well, nobody really takes notice or whatever. If I could just encourage you listening to this, I would say just keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, just keep following Jesus. Chip talks about all the time, 32 trap.
Yeah, run the play.
It was designed to get 3 yards, right? But every now and then, that play that was designed to get 3 yards goes for 70 and a touchdown. And so you never know when that impact will come. You never know what type of impact you may have. And honestly, you may not realize the full effect of that impact, but it does not mean that you're not having an impact.
Yeah, I've got a story real quick, actually, kind of along this line. There was a kid I coached in my very first year at Lake City Middle School. And it was last year. So 10 years later, I get a phone call. Hey, and he's an adult. He's graduated from college. Like this guy is moving on in life. Hey, Coach, I'd love for you to come Sunday morning. I'm getting baptized. Okay. So, 3 years of his life, I got to invest in him. I got to hang out with him. I watched him through high school, got to love on him, check in on him, all that fun stuff. But it's different once they leave you and they're not with you for those hours every day. But somehow, some way, when he decided he was getting baptized, I was one of the people that he called that he wanted to just be present. And I didn't get to baptize him, and that's fine. Like that was his pastor's job 100%. But he felt like I need to call Coach Trey. And that's one of those moments that all the chaos of coaching and stuff that comes with that, you're just like, man, this is where it's at.
So something that stands out, and I live in this world, we live in sports world, right? So what you're saying, like I'm listening, and somewhat it just like is just white noise, so to speak. Not the story, but something that you said, but I want to stop and point it out because it strikes me. So you coached this kid 10 years ago.
Right.
And when he called you, what did he call you?
Coach.
Yeah. Because that's the type of impact that you have. Like, I can think of people today that coached me when I was in Little League, and my reference to them, when I talk to them, when I see them, I say, hey, Coach, so-and-so, because there is a title of respect that comes with that.
Yeah.
And again, 10 years ago, that was something that was being ingrained in this kid, where this is somebody that I respect. 10 years goes by and it's like, oh, good kid. I enjoy coaching, whatever. Yeah. And then you get to realize some of the impact that I had.
Right.
That, you know, it was a seed that took 10 years to grow, so to speak.
Yeah. You know, you poked fun at me recently in a group chat. I sent a screenshot of something that was said, like, make fun of a guy in our group chat. And it said, Coach Clark in there.
Absolutely.
JT, one of my, you know, he's a buddy of ours now. He was my high school baseball coach. When I see him, it's still, what's up, coach? Like, I very rarely call him JT. Right. That's coach.
But the dynamic has changed, but yeah, it's ingrained.
Yeah, he's still coach.
Yeah.
And his dad is still always Coach Clark to me.
Yeah.
Like, people would call him Tom Clark. I'm like, who's Tom Clark?
Tom?
But
Yeah.
I know Coach Clark.
Yeah. So this kind of leads us to the next thing I want to talk about. What advice would you guys give? So, you know, we have people who listen to this. Maybe they're a dad. Maybe they are coaching right now, you know, but maybe they've been coaching how they just know to coach, and they're just coaching the fundamentals of fill in the blank sport, right? Or I'm coaching my kid not to, you know, get mad and cry if he throws an interception or strikes out or whatever. Like I'm doing the best, but I haven't really thought about coaching from a ministry standpoint. What advice might you guys give to somebody who wants to marry the world of ministry and sports specifically? Is there any advice that you would get for helping somebody get over the hump, right? Like, they speak the language, they have an invested interest in sports because they played it, they're passionate about it, their kids play it, whatever. But maybe they've never taken that step of thinking, okay, but how can I do this that has an impact? How can I do this beyond trying to win a game or teach kids fundamentals? What can I do practically that has ministry impact? Because I follow Jesus and I want to marry these two worlds. Do you have any practical advice for that person who may be wondering, like, how do I do this?
Yeah. Do you want to start with that, or?
I'll let you start.
Okay. I think immediately, so Jesus was fully grace and truth, right? We hear that in church. In the sports world, it's heavy on the truth. And as a coach, when we can extend grace, that's a big deal. And not while compromising truth, but as a coach, if you want to be a coach who is effective ministering to your players, you have to extend grace. And grace doesn't mean you just let things slide. You address those things, but you also say, like, hey, you made a mistake. I'm not going to berate you. I'm not going to belittle you. And I would hope, I think there's one story, and it was in my first year as a coach, where I think I belittled a kid. And the kids all remember it, and they bring it up and they laugh about it. He doesn't, though. And I don't either. I'm like, oh, yeah, I dropped the ball there. But extending grace is how we can minister to these guys, because it's a world full of truth. And, you know, the reality of truth is it shows up in the stat book. And so they already know how poorly they're doing. Give them grace. So
I want to lean into this real quick. So this is the person who specifically is in the coach world, right? Coaching whatever sport. So we have someone who attends our Live Oak location who just happens to be a big baseball guy, sports guy. His name is Hunter Abercrombie. And so I know that he also listens to this because he'll
This is for Hunter.
There you go.
We love Hunter Abercrombie.
All right. So Hunter he also listens to this because he'll text me or Chip or whoever sometimes and just comment on the podcast. But he shared something the other day, and I think there's a tie-in here to what you guys are talking about from marrying two worlds of ministry and sports and how do I do this. And so he's a big Swanee guy, like way back in the archive Swanee guy. He bleeds green and white. I know that doesn't make you guys, you know, happy or move your needle, but
I wore a green and white shirt recently.
Yeah, and we lost, so you're never invited back to a Swanee game. Yeah, and I told Trey that to his face. But he shared this thing, and it went back. It was an article from, I think, like the 70s in the Swanee Democrat, and they were interviewing. I think
saw that. That was good.
I think one of the coaches. But the quote is this, and I'm going to read it, but I think it applies to what you're saying as far as applying grace, right? Because sports can be heavy on the truth, right? You strike out, and then everybody at the stands is saying, "Oh, this and that, mom and dad."
Meanwhile, you already know you struck out.
You know, you're like
fully aware.
Dadgummit,
I got to walk back to the dugout. It's obvious.
Yeah.
I just
and all my teammates are mad at me. You know, all that. So heavy on the truth, not always on the grace. But the quote from the article is this: "If you're ever going to be different, you better go about it differently." And I think there's a principle here for if you want to do ministry and marry ministry and sports, then as a coach, if you want to be different, if you want to stand out, if you want to have an impact, then maybe you need to think about how do I do it differently? Because in my experience, and I go up to the rec center just to watch games, like I just like sports.
You can learn some stuff up there.
But usually what you learn just by observing it makes me cringe. And it's like this is not what we should be doing.
Yeah.
Right. Because we're teaching the kids really and truly how not to behave.
100%.
Because I have an adult who's jumping up and down and yelling at umpires and tearing their hats or whatever. And we'll talk more about the nuances of that. But the point is, if I want to do ministry, then maybe even as I'm thinking about, okay, well, how does everybody else coach? Maybe I need to think about how to do it differently.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't mean that I sacrifice the fundamentals of the game.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I sacrifice the truth of how to play the game. But maybe it looks like instead of berating that kid in front of God and everybody and their family and friends or whatever, maybe it looks like, hey, I bring them to the side and I say, hey, what you did was wrong, but here's how I'm going to handle it. You know, and there's 1,000 examples you could use, but I just thought that quote really maybe is key to how do I take this step?
Yeah.
That it starts with, if you're going to be different, then maybe do it differently.
One of the most effective things I've ever learned to tell a kid in this 11-year journey is, you're my guy. A kid strikes out, he's devastated. His mom and dad are yelling at him. And I always try now to put an arm around him and say, hey, you're my guy. You're in the lineup. You're here. You're going to get another shot later today. This ball's going to get hit to you this inning, and everybody's going to forget about it when you make the play.
Yeah.
You're my guy. Like,
so you can address it, you can correct it, but then you also speak life into this person. You come back alongside them, put your arm around them and say, man, I believe in you.
100%.
And that goes so far.
It's the best thing you can tell a kid, because in that moment, they don't believe in themselves. It's the, you live in the moment in sports. And so when you strike out, you really don't care if you're going to get another at bat later.
Right.
You're stuck worried about how frustrating that was. And we've all been there, right? You don't execute a pitch and it gets hit a country mile, or Trey hits a double off of you and you get really frustrated, right?
I mean, if we're saying hypotheticals, then sure. Yeah. So Corey, I'm curious, what advice might you give to somebody who, you know, maybe this resonates with them. They're like, you know what, there's something to this informal missionary stuff. I want to think about how to do that. Do you have any practical advice for somebody who maybe, who wants to take that step?
Well, where's your common ground? If you find your common ground and your common interests, there's availability everywhere. You know,
that's good. Actually, that's really good.
If you play music, was not gifted with that, my brother was, then you have common ground with people there.
Right.
And find where those people that have common ground are, and then be present.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just the thing is, like, I keep coming back to this, man, just being present, just showing up has such a big impact. Consistency, showing up over and over again. I think it communicates that, man, I care about you. I care about you as a player. That's why I got on to you. You know, that's why I care that you play the game the right way. I want to have this conversation, and this is maybe controversial. I hope not, but I think there's a line, right? Oh, yeah. There's a line that exists in the arena, and I say the arena categorizing all sports. And here's what I mean. In our digital series at Followers, we kind of hit on this phrase over and over again, that in a digital world, social media tends to bring out the worst in people. Not the best, but the worst, including followers of Jesus. I would argue that the arena, the sports arena, whatever sport it is, it could be college football where nobody is even participating. We're just all sitting in our chairs texting each other, right? In the arena, I would say similarly brings out the worst in people, including followers of Jesus. So the question that I want to ask, as somebody who's very competitive, as somebody who loves sports, whether it's pickleball or softball or baseball or flag football or whatever it is, right? I love the competition side of it. The question I want to ask you guys, because I have thoughts on this, where does the line get drawn between following Jesus, being able to compete, but then crossing the line and going too far?
Can we do a part 2?
where is too far, right? Like, how competitive am I allowed to be as a follower of Jesus? Or do I just have to say, you know what, we lost by 100, but we pat each other on the back and we're okay. You know, and we go to Dairy Queen and eat ice cream afterwards. Any thoughts on that from your guys' perspective? Where's the line of competition and following Jesus? And are you allowed to be competitive and be a follower of Jesus?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you're supposed to do everything with the best of your abilities. So the competitiveness is going to be there.
I'm talking to the choir here because I know that you guys are competitive.
1 Corinthians 10:31. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all to the glory of God. If you're playing baseball and you're a God-honoring Christian, you need to be the best baseball player you can possibly be, because the pedestal that you may have for the teammates next to you, for the fans that you're reaching, for if God gives you the ability to go on to the next level and play, you have the opportunity to influence. And so, yeah, it's okay to be competitive. You better go out there and compete. In fact, with Sammy and Nate, my two boys, if they play sports, we're not going out there just to have fun. Like, yeah, I hope they do. I hope they love it. I hope they have the memories, but we're going out there to compete. You can have fun in the locker room. You can have fun on the bus. You can have fun in the group chats, but you better go out there to compete every single day, because that's honoring to God.
All right. So I want to push back. I'm going to play devil's advocate.
I wouldn't advocate for him.
So where is the line, though, to the person who says, hey, in the words of Will Ferrell in Kicking and Screaming, break their clavicles on 3, right? Like
the line is definitely, he's crossed.
Where's the line, though, of, hey, we're not here just to have fun. We're here to compete, but at what expense? Like where's the line of
where your honesty and integrity start to get questioned? That's where the line is. When you lie and you cheat and you steal and you manipulate and you break the rules and you bend the rules, and your parents start to lie and cheat for you, and they want the umpire to have been right, and they're yelling at him because he missed a call. That's part of the game. You need to stop throwing your helmet, stop throwing your sucker in the dirt, stop being a whiny baby, and go out there and compete and control what you can control. And I might be getting in my coach mode right now, but stop whining about everything that's outside of the rules, outside of the bounds. Play the game the right way, play it hard. And that's where the line is. There's a set of rules that's there. Stay within it. Stay with integrity. And you know what? Stop showing up the other team. Stop looking in their dugout. Stop trying to. High school baseball is the worst right now. And I love the energy. I'll say it. You can't say it. I will. I love the energy, but stop looking in the other team's dugout. Start getting hype with your guys. That's where the line starts to be drawn.
So what's the difference then between that and competing? Because I would say I agree with all of those things. I think there's a right and a wrong way to compete, right? There's a way to compete where it is God honoring to the best of my ability. Yeah. I bust my butt. Listen, this is going to sound probably like a brag, but I don't mean it to be. That verse that you read, 1 Corinthians 10:31, like it changed my attitude as a baseball player. When I showed up as a freshman in college, when I ran sprints, that was literally the verse that I thought of. When I ran poles as a pitcher, and we ran a lot, that was the verse that was in my head every single day. And it impacted my teammates to where they were mad because they were like, you're showing us up because we're tired.
Yeah, we told you to take off this route.
We don't want to run hard, and you're finishing 30 yards in front of us because you're trying to, and the way they say it is you're trying to impress the coaches or suck up or whatever.
No, that's
But in my head, it was like, this rep is not going to beat me.
Yeah.
I am going to beat this rep. I don't care how tired I am. I don't care how fatigued. I don't care how bad my legs hurt. My lungs are screaming, whatever. Like, I am going to get after it as hard as I can, because in that moment, I felt like that was God honoring. So I would say you can compete in that way.
Yes.
But I would say there's a difference where now I'm competing, and my competing looks like really it's my pride being hurt.
Yes.
And so I'm going to mouth off to the other fans. I'm going to mouth off to the other coaches. I'm going to mouth off to, if I'm a player, like high school or whatever, like now I'm going to take shots at you as a person.
Yeah.
Now we're not competing anymore. Now what we're doing is we're admitting that my pride has been hurt, and my pride is getting in the way of me honoring God.
It's honestly living in an online world. It's that everybody needs to see you, and no longer. This is why high school sports was beautiful. What was on the front of your jersey mattered.
Mm-hmm, right.
It doesn't anymore. It's all about me. Half these kids didn't grow up where they play. It's all about me. And that's the culture we've created. And that's where the line starts to get blurred and crossed, is when it lacks integrity, is for me is the line.
Yeah. So I think for me, this is what I love about sports, right? And maybe we can begin to round out this conversation. I'll leave you guys up to any final comments in just a minute. But what I love about sports is really it reveals character.
Absolutely.
Because sports will make you face adversity. One thing I love about baseball, it is a game built on failure.
100%.
The most successful people fail more than they ever succeed.
Yeah.
It is a game that exposes you, and I don't care who you are. I don't care how many Bible verses you quote. I don't care if you're at church every Sunday. Who are you when you experience failure?
Yep.
Absolutely.
That is your character coming to light. Now, I'm not saying be perfect. I stood on our stage in Live Oak and I publicly confessed and apologized to our congregation because I lost my temper at an umpire. I am not saying that it is with perfection, right? But what I am saying is, who are you when you experience failure? And this is what I love about marrying the two worlds, is that when you're a coach, when you're a mentor, you get to see people in the midst of their failure, right. And that's when you can speak life into them.
Yep.
Yes.
When they've gone 0 for 12 and they struck out in a huge moment and they feel the weight of their team's success on their shoulders and they failed.
Yeah.
Everybody else is mad. Nobody else wants to talk to them. And I come up and I say, hey man, I know what you're going through. It's going to be all right. You're going to be the guy next time. You're going to get the hit next time, right? Like you get to meet people in their failure. And I love it because sports is a microcosm of life. It's easy on the mountaintop. And you can speak to this, Corey. What is it like though when the doctor comes in and says, hey, it's cancer? Who am I in that moment?
Right.
Right? Like that's when faith matters.
Yeah.
On the mountaintop, like I can say all the right things. I can quote all the right verses. I'm not saying don't do those things, but I'm saying there's something about failure. James says it this way: count it all joy, my brothers, when you experience what? Successes of all kinds? No.
Right. Trials.
Trials of various kinds. Why? Because trials reveal what's under the surface.
And then in that verse, the joy we're referencing, we just did a study in James in our small group. That joy is not promised to us in this life. That joy is promised to us in the next life. And that's the part that I think so many athletes and Christians miss. We're not experiencing these trials to come out on the other side happy tomorrow. We're experiencing these trials because there is a God who is worth serving, who sent his son to die on the cross for us. And the joy is on the other side of this life.
Right. But the trials what expose it.
Right.
Right. It's okay. It looks good on the outside when the jersey's clean. What about when you get a little dirt on you? What about when you get a little blood on you? Right. It's what's underneath. And I think sports does a great job because it reveals, because you're forced to face adversity.
Yeah.
You're forced to deal with failure. And it's who am I in those moments? Right. And this is what I think is a great opportunity to minister, because sports also provides a picture of what it looks like when you aren't the main character. And that is the church.
Yep.
Too many people in our society today, in a digital world, like we think we are the main character because our page is fueled by algorithms that give us what we want. We can customize our order on an app. We can customize the shoes that we wear. We can customize everything to our preferences and what we want. And our world is curated to get us what we want. And yet the church is all about Jesus. And we are not the main character of the church. In fact, Jesus says over and over again, what? You should love your neighbor as yourself. You should consider their needs more important than your own. Husbands and wives, this is the picture of how you love each other, is that you submit to that person as a wife, right? You lay down your desires to consider their desires. And sports, I think, is a beautiful picture and a great opportunity for ministry, because it gives tangible ways that these kids, these high schoolers, elementary age, whoever, it gives them pictures. You can speak their language, but it provides a picture of what it looks like when it's not all about you, when it's about a team, what it looks like when failure sets in. And I think it's just a huge opportunity. There's too many parallels between that and the church that if we become informal missionaries, I think we have so many opportunities to speak life into kids through a common language, through illustrations and examples that they can understand, that just translates so well to what it looks like, where the church is all about Jesus. It exists for his glory. We just get to play our part. We just get to have a role, much like the person who pinch runs, much like the person who plays 1 out of 11 positions on the field, 6 positions on the court, right? We get to play a part. And when everybody plays their part together, it paints a beautiful picture.
Yep. Yeah. So with that said, Max, I know we're going to be wrapping down shortly. There are opportunities to serve and to be a part of this, like Corey. And obviously this is a selfish plug for myself, but if you feel compelled to go serve at the Lafayette baseball team or the Swanee soccer team or whatever, I would love to work on getting you out there, but it doesn't just stop there. There's nothing keeping dad from walking out and doing that with his kids' little league team. Not a single thing. There's not a single law against dad going out there and saying, hey, if you want to stay after practice for a Bible study today, I'd love to do that. Yeah. And we need to see more and more of that coming from moms and dads in our communities, because there are a lot of people who've meant a lot to me in life. The parents of some of my friends that I played baseball with my whole life have some of the biggest influence in my life still today.
Yeah.
And I would double down on that. I think if you were to start that as a dad on your little league team, you'd be surprised how many moms and dads sat in on that Bible
100%. And you'd get the call 10 years later to come sit at a kid's baptism.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say this: if you're listening, number one, be encouraged that you can be an informal missionary.
Yeah.
With whatever, like Corey said earlier, whatever common ground you share with the people around you, and press into that. Look for those opportunities to build those relationships, because when you do it and you show up time after time, it gives you the opportunity to speak life into those people. And then the second thing is this: if you're thinking like, hey, I want to do this, I don't know how, then I would encourage you to reach out to one of us. Reach out to Trey. He has tons of resources. That's the beauty of FCA. It's not just an organization that pats you on the back and says, go figure it out. He can actually give you resources that practically help you with some of this stuff. He'd be a great asset, a great resource for you to kind of bounce ideas with, have a conversation. Myself, I would love to be able to have that conversation. Pretty much any of your location pastors, people that you know at your location, I promise you, we would love to help you in any way. Try to be these types of informal missionaries, because at the end of the day, we want to be invested in our communities, and the only way to reach our communities is to be invested in them. And so it's a privilege to have you guys here today. I enjoyed our conversation. I think there's more in the tank, so maybe we can convince Chip to have a part 2 of this one day. But in the meantime, we'll catch you guys back here next week. Thanks for following along.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk About That. We hope it encouraged and challenged you as we continue to grow on this journey of faith and embrace community together. If you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us through our social media channels or visit our website to stay connected. Your support is what makes this podcast impactful. If you found today's discussion meaningful, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, share the episode with a friend, and leave a review. Your engagement helps us spread the message and connect with others who can be encouraged through these conversations. Until next time, we hope this episode inspired you to live out your faith this week. Keep the conversations alive, and remember, we're all on this journey together.